So this is an article from McClatchydc.com, which is basically just a mainstream publication. And there was an article written by a writer named Andrew Malcolm. And the title says, "No Ideas, Policies, or Talking Points. Doddering Pelosi. Crew leans on the quote, 'We are not Trump.'" That's the headline. So basically saying that the Democrats are pushing the idea of we are not Donald Trump, so we are obviously the better choice for you to support and for you to vote for. So obviously not a surprising take from these kind of Democrats, because that's basically what they've been saying for a while. So let's check it out here. It says, distracted by Donald Trump's disputations, style, and flagrant violations of political norms, Democrats have consistently underestimated his political appeal. No way he could beat their candidate in 2016, but he did. No way the New Yorker would actually make a conservative Supreme Court nomination, let alone get it through, but he did. Signed tax reform and repealed Obamacare's core mandate, too, plus dozens of executive orders contradicting his predecessor's efforts. Now, Democrats and their sympathetic media are eagerly awaiting the oncoming annihilation of many of Trump's congressional ground troops in the midterm elections just 40 weeks away. Maybe so. Republicans losing one or both chambers would stymie Trump's agenda for at least 2 years, not to mention his district and higher court judicial appointments. But Democrats appear to be making a familiar mistake again, one that's become chronic for them this century. That is, in the words of another Republican president they misjudged, misunderestimating their GOP opponent. So just to pause here for a second, it's a great breakdown of what Democrats have been, what's unfortunate situations the Democrats have gotten themselves into, where they have just focused on the possibility of putting forth these shitty these shitty ideas, and hoping these shitty candidates, in this case Trump, is not going to gain any. He's not going to gain any popularity. He's not going to be taken seriously by anybody. Everybody's going to hate him. Now, to be fair, Trump does have a 30% approval rating, so he's not popular. So we know that. But as far as him being, hated by the entire country, and everybody just going against him, and then he's going to be impeached, which, to be fair, can't happen. But obviously it hasn't happened yet. But for all these different things to happen, they're relying on this kind of stuff, and they say, oh, look what a terrible person he is. Look what an asshole he is. Look how mean he is. Look at all these bad words that he uses, and look how he smears everybody. Like, they rely on that basically to get them through, I guess a political situation. I guess if they want to go through the primary, I guarantee you all the Democrats running in the primary for 2020, they're all going to be saying how they're not Trump. I think everybody except against Bernie Sanders, if he runs, everybody except him, everybody's going to say, oh my God, look how terrible Trump is, and I'm good because I'm not Trump. Bernie Sanders would never say that. He would actually focus on policy substance. And yeah, so I mean, like, that's just the same shit they've been doing for I don't know how long now. And it's like what is it? Are you too lazy to focus on substance? Are you too lazy to address real issues out there? Or are you just so compromised by your donors that they don't want you to focus on the issues that people care about, so you just don't even bother with it? You give little platitudes and cliches that just get you by, kind of like Joe Kennedy did in his State of the Union, and you just give a little short short statements on those issues, but you don't really address them in detail. So this is a good, this article makes a good point of that. So I'm going to continue here. It says, presidential midterms are usually political report cards on the party controlling the White House. Bill Clinton got shellacked in 1994. Riding support after 9/11, George W. Bush gained House and Senate seats in 2002, but then lost both houses in 2006. All signs so far indicate Democratic candidates and the money-strapped National Party are counting on winning back at least part of Congress. specifically the House, this year by playing off the country's widely held displeasure or disgust with Trump. They are confident that "we are not Trump" is sufficient to carry the day November 6th, which is November 6th, 2018. Anti-Trump animus might seem a tempting bet. A majority of Americans have disapproved of Trump's job performance seemingly since within minutes of his taking the oath 53 weeks ago. Although 8 of 10 Republicans have stuck with him, Trump's overall job approval has bobbed along from the low 40s to mid-30s, historically low for a new chief executive. Trump was elected by a dedicated plurality, promising to shake up Washington's comfortable, self-centered ways on both sides of the aisle. He's certainly shaken things up from a style perspective, even going after his own party's establishment leaders. Trump has, in fact, invented the political equivalent of fracking, finding and creating vast reservoirs of subterranean turmoil to exploit for sometimes murky reasons. Now, no one ever seeks or becomes president with a minute ego. Trump's is, let's say, plus size. All the turmoil keeps the daily, even hourly focus on him, which seems important to the man. So that's a great point being made by the author. He's saying that the attention that Trump gets puts so much attention of the Democrats on how Trump is this, crazy, shoot from the hip, asshole type personality who's just, basically a dick. And instead of focusing on the issues that he's really shitty about and really shitty, all the shitty, issues that he's pushing, instead of pointing out those kind of things, they just focus on, he's really mean, and he, he talks about shithole countries, and he talks about how, the white supremacists are fine people and stuff like that, which is fucked up. These are all fucked up things he's saying. Nobody's disputing that he is a prick, that he is an asshole. But when it comes to addressing his specific policies, Democrats barely even bother going, even dealing with that, because they know how hard that is. They know they have to get into the details of that. And if they do that, they're going to get, they feel, of course it's not true, but they figure people are dumb, so they're going to bore them with details of substance, on policy. Of course that's bullshit, because when you look at somebody like Bernie, he's all over. He's talking about substance all the time, and people listen to him. But Democrats think no, they got to dumb everything down to make sure they keep their their audience listening, essentially, even though a lot of people don't want to have anything to do with Democrats these days. So the article continues here. It says, but it also often distracts from or completely destroys the daily focus on his own priorities, programs, and strategies. Such behavior delights his you-tell-him base, but it leaves most everyone else confused, ignorant, or even worried about what he's doing and why. The president has lacked the day-to-day discipline for driving home the administration's accomplishments and goals beyond his Twitter account. Some days, yes, others not so much, often because he can't resist some provocative tweet that causes opponents and critics to hyperventilate into hyperbole. Nancy Pelosi, for instance, dismissed as crumbs the tax reform-fueled corporate contagion of 1,000 employees' bonuses. She's a multimillionaire, of course, so $1,000 is walking around money. Seeming out of touch is a real problem for the Septuaginarian. I'm sorry, this is not a word I've ever seen before. Septuaginarian San Franciscan and her aged party leadership that is perhaps trying to overcome its liberal coastal tunnel vision and convince middle America of its genuine concern, even for people living here legally. It says, quick, what big midterm policy goals are Democrats driving as alternatives to Trump and the GOP? The positive talking points they recite in unison day after day on every channel that will have them? Yeah, that's basically a great, another great point, pointing out how they not only obsess over the things Trump says in his, crazy things that he says on his Twitter account and on social media and stuff, which obviously gets the ire of Democrats, gets the ire of partisans that hate him and stuff. Even many Republicans out there, more quote unquote moderate Republicans, who prefer a president that's nicer, I guess. But yeah, I mean that grows the ire of a lot of those kind of people, and Democrats use that to say like, oh, look how terrible Trump is. Look how, look at all this, fucked up shit he's saying. Look at, again, like I said before, all this fucked up shit he's saying, all this, crazy rhetoric that he uses that offends a lot of people. So basically you're getting the PC police all riled up because of, bad words that Mr. Trump is using, God forbid he says something that offends us, and let's use that as a reason to attack him instead of focusing on policy substance. Again, it all boils down to that. Okay, so we got a few more short paragraphs here. It says, that is the talking points other than we're not Trump. He's terrible. Anyone? Bueller? For however long Trump lasts, and even with the unresolved threat of the special prosecutor, by the force of his personality and proclivities, he has initiated a new kind of unpredictable U.S. politics. By historical precedent, he didn't have a chance in 2016 against 16 Republicans, then the artless what's-her-name who dubbed Trump supporters deplorables, Hillary Clinton. By historical precedent, Trump's party should be en route to losing at least 24 seats and House control. Remember that chambers committees initiate all financial legislation and would have a free hand to subpoena and investigate any deplorables they choose. But the president is not on the ballot. Stocks are soaring, jobs are mounting nicely, the economy is growing at twice the rate under Obama. Do voters really see lifelong Democratic donor Trump as insufficiently Republican to punish through their midterm ballots for congressmen? Note, polls show Americans overwhelmingly detesting Congress, but consistently favoring their own member, which is where their vote actually goes. Can Pelosi and her doddering crew convince enough Americans that she and her party should retrieve the speaker's gavel without outlining specifically what, if anything positive, they propose to do differently, other than, of course, not being Donald Trump? Yeah, so, I mean, that's, other than the point about, stocks are soaring, jobs are mounting nicely. I mean, yeah, a lot of that is true. But I mean, a lot of the jobs that are being produced are low-paying jobs, just like it was under Obama. So it's not that big of a deal. Even what was happening under Obama was, wasn't that great. And as far as the economy growing at twice the rate, that's not going to last forever, especially with the policies of tax cuts and deregulation and stuff. That's not really gonna, that if anything, that just leads to a short boom bust type cycle for the economy, and a lot of that is just Republican bullshit. Basically, they don't even really care about the economy growing. They just want to give tax cuts to their CEO buddies and their whoever's in corporate, all those corporate friends of theirs who are basically giving them being their donors essentially and giving them campaign money. So yeah, I mean, I would say majority of this article is absolutely correct, and it's pointing out that Democrats do not have a specific message to face against Trump. To be fair, well, to be specific, to face against Trump-like candidates 2018, so just basically all Republicans, and then 2020 when they try and take over the presidency. But yeah, they don't have a message. I mean, the message is basically, I'm not Trump. I'm, not an asshole. I'm not a mean person. I don't say shithole countries. I don't say, all the mean things about immigrants and Muslims and stuff, I'm not anti-gay. I'm not anti-abortion. It's just a lot of issues that just you don't get into specifics with. And when you don't get into the specifics of it, then you don't have to marry yourself to any ideas. Because whenever you marry yourself to ideas, then you're expected to make those ideas come to fruition. So if you're going to go out there, so let's say if Democrats go out there and say, oh yeah, we're going to be pushing for Medicare for all, we're going to be pushing for universal, college, tuition-free college, a living wage, even a $15 minimum wage, stuff like that. Getting rid of war, getting out of the different 7-8 countries that we're bombing right now. When you make promises like that, of course you have to, the people that you made those promises to, they're going to expect you they're going to hold you to it, and they're going to expect that to happen. Oops. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff is just like, a lot of that just stuff comes from like just political opportunism. So they say it, I mean, the fact that they say it is nice at first glance, but then when they don't end up doing it, which, many times they don't. And, back in the day when you were, when I was following politics and I heard, different Democrats saying this stuff, I believed them. I was like, oh, okay, they must be on my side. They must be, if they're saying this, they must be honest, and they must be better. They must be moral characters, in what they're doing, compared to these Republicans who are pushing the ideas that I don't like. Now, in that case, that's fine. That's a matter that makes sense because, I obviously support this person over that person. But these days I've become so like annoyed with all this, bullshit political speak and just kind of, like I said, opportunism. And, Hillary Clinton and her campaign and basically Democrats, they wanted to run against Trump to begin with. They were either wanting to run against Trump, Ted Cruz, or Ben Carson. So they were pushing all of these kind of like right-wing, kind of radical type candidates that they thought Hillary Clinton would beat. Now, to be fair, I think she would have beaten Ted Cruz and Ben Carson. But against somebody like Trump, the campaign, the election was basically always close throughout the entire campaign, throughout the entire 2016 general election and stuff. Even before the general election, when they were doing polls, they showed that Hillary Clinton, was polling within, maybe 2 or 3 points ahead of Trump. Now, I think it was a little bit more to begin with, but it got less and less the more people figured out who Bernie was, and Bernie was ahead by 15 points in some polls, 10 to 15 points in some polls against Trump. But then obviously the Democrats ended up choosing Hillary. So how did that work out? You ended up choosing a person that lost to the most unpopular candidate in history. Trump had somewhere between 55 and 60% disapproval rating on the day of the election, November, whatever it was. And on that day, on election day, he had the the highest disapproval rating, and basically nobody liked him, but they were like, you know what, this guy's kind of, he's a mystery compared to Hillary Clinton, who everybody knows. She's involved in all kinds of different scandals, to be fair, not that Trump isn't, but Hillary was just known much more on the political front, whereas Trump was a rookie. And, if you compare it to Obama was a rookie too. They didn't want Hillary, they wanted this, this cool, suave-looking black guy, this guy that was saying all these progressive things. Of course, Obama didn't actually end up doing any of those progressive things. It was all talk and no action, basically, or part action, halfway action. Yeah, so I mean, in the case of Trump, Democrats didn't notice that Trump was basically this Molotov cocktail that was going to blow up the establishment, and he was going to grow the ire of all these, these typical establishment type Republicans and Democrats who, can't stand this guy that, is so, bold and shoots from the hip and says things that you wouldn't expect. And he ended up winning the election, which definitely nobody expected. So yeah, when Trump won, I mean, people just didn't know what to do anymore. And they were in a state of awe, and they basically wanted to respond by just saying, I'm not Trump, I'm not, he's a racist, he's a sexist, he's this, he's that. Their rhetoric just turned to just these simplistic talking points where they can't get into substance because Trump doesn't lack any substance himself. So they think by they can get to they can reach his voters, or I guess some voters out there. They assume that they're dumb enough to buy in. If they're dumb enough to buy into the rhetoric that Trump pushes, they're going to be dumb enough to fall into rhetoric, weak ass rhetoric that the Democrats push, which obviously is not working for progressives. It might be working for other, Dem loyalists and stuff out there, but progressives don't fall for that shit. So it all just boils down to just pushing progressive, progressive rhetoric that people can trust, and where they don't feel like they're being bamboozled, and where they're not being tricked by cheap ass talking points. So that's what it all comes down to. And if Democrats can figure this out and decide to be more than just I'm not Trump, then they can get somewhere. But unfortunately, their donors don't allow that. Their strategists and their insiders and stuff tell them the way they're going is perfectly fine, don't change. While progressives are just, screaming at them to just please do something different. And they just don't really give a shit. They're just like, fuck you, we know what we're doing. And watch, if they end up losing to Trump again, they're going to be blaming progressives. They're going to be saying progressives were the reason because they didn't come out and vote for our shitty-ass candidates who had shitty policies.